Most genealogy regrets are not caused by bad luck. They happen because we get excited, we move fast, and we don't build a system that can survive for the next 5 years of research. So today I am sharing 10 things that will save you from regret, from losing records, creating confusion, and having to clean up a mess later. So number one, make your kids and your grandkids the focus of your tree, not you or your spouse. When I started entering my tree into the very first genealogy software program I ever used, it was called Generations. I made the mistake of creating one tree for me and one tree for my husband. Now, at the time, it seemed harmless, even practical, because I thought it would help me kind of set them straight and keep them separate. But once kids and grandkids entered the picture, it became obvious that separate trees create extra work and unnecessary confusion. The goal is not to build a tree around you as an individual, but to build a family tree that can grow across generations. So if you're married, add your spouse to your tree and build both sides from the beginning. If you're not married yet, and I highly recommend it, hey, think ahead. Use one master tree structure so that if you do marry later, you could add that spouse and their ancestors without having to reconcile two separate systems. Now, if you've already made this mistake, don't panic. Just make a plan for how you're going to merge or transfer the data going forward. The sooner you correct it, the less painful the cleanup will be. Unfortunately, Ancestry and MyHeritage, they don't let you import a second tree and kind of merge it with your tree. So you kind of have to pick away at it. And that's what I did. As I would work on a particular area of my tree, I would add in the information. So eventually, I got both trees together in one place. Okay, the second thing is to keep your master family tree on your computer, not only on a genealogy website. It's so easy to think that online trees are enough. I mean, after all, the website is already there. You've got a subscription to it. The tree tool feels really fast and convenient. But convenience can become a trap when it replaces ownership. Websites change and they come and go. You know that's true if you've been doing this for a while, like I have. I mean, do you remember World Vital Records? Who knew that website was going to go away one day? Or RootsWeb, which is now inactive, and it's just an archive of past messages from genealogists. You know, and life changes too. There may come a time when you can't or you aren't able to continue to pay for an expensive subscription to Ancestry. And here's the thing. When your subscription comes to an end, so does your access to any records that you attached to your tree. And frankly, with the rise of artificial intelligence, I feel this is really more important than ever. We have no idea where all this is going. So the wise genealogist retains control of their tree and research in all scenarios. The tree on your computer should contain all of your conclusions, your notes, your media, and so on. It's the final word on what you believe is true about your family tree to date. Online trees are fine as a supplement to generate hints or create multiple trees to try out kind of your latest theories. Think of the online tree as a workspace and the tree on your computer as the archive. Now, if you haven't done this yet, all you have to do is pick one of the software programs that are out there. There's popular programs like Roots Magic, Legacy Family Tree, and Family Tree Maker. Download your family tree from whatever website you have it on as a GEDCOM file and import the GEDCOM into your new software program. From now on, you'll work in that software program. You can sync it to your favorite genealogy website if you want to, or just add selective information into your online tree manually. It's a little extra work, but it really is worth the investment to have your own database on your computer. It can actually be nice to limit what goes into your online tree to maybe just your direct ancestors rather than every relative that you find. That way the hints are streamlined and focused on just those people. Number 3 is download all the genealogical records that you find to your computer. As I said, If you just attach records to your online tree, you're going to lose access to them if you ever end your subscription. Downloading is easy to do, and it ensures you'll always have access to your family's records. Now, you might be wondering, why would anybody not be doing this? Well, I've actually heard from folks who didn't even know it was an option. So you might be wondering, how could that be? Well, there are people doing genealogy on their phone or tablet. I mean, that's it. That's where they started. And again, that so-called convenient app is kind of luring them into not keeping the records for themselves. You just approve the record and you go on to the next. If you happen to click the share icon, you could save it to your phone, but who wants to save all these documents to a phone? Or you could click and you could share it maybe to a cloud service like Dropbox. But frankly, it gets really easy to skip it because you think, oh, well, it's attached to my tree. Here's the thing. You're going to want those records. Whether you feel that way now or not, you paid for them, and eventually you're going to want to have access to them. It would be nearly impossible to try to go back and download everything if you decide that you're going to stop paying several $100s a year for a subscription. So download them now as you research so you'll have a permanent copy for later reference and review. And by the way, you really don't want to be doing genealogy research on your phone. That small screen is just not adequate for scrutinizing records and seeing the big picture. Using a cell phone to examine a large genealogical document is kind of like trying to read an old parchment paper through a keyhole. You might spot a few words, but you could miss the real story that ties them together. Have you ever noticed when you write something and you type it up in a Word document, you print it out and you read it and you look at the whole thing and you go, oh, there's mistakes. I didn't see those on the digital screen. Same kind of thing with a phone. So here's the practical workflow. When you find a record, save it immediately to your computer in your organized genealogy folders. Don't tell yourself you're going to come back later, because later is probably not going to happen. This is also a great chance to add annotations to those images that might be helpful to you for later reference. I like to use a software program. It's called Snagit, and I add really quickly text, highlighting, and other markings that help me remember important aspects of the record. And by all means, attach the record to the person in your tree on the website as well. That's fine. Number 4 is to implement a file naming structure from the get-go. When your files begin piling up, the name that you give them becomes the difference between instant retrieval and endless hunting. A good file name should tell you what the record is at a glance, and ideally it's going to help the computer kind of sort it into a logical order for you. This simple formula works really, really well. Okay, you put in when, who, where, and optionally you could put what. So for example, your file name could be 1900-04-17, that's your date, Burkett, there's my surname, Conover, the first name, Union City, Indiana, there's the place. And I could add census as the type of record as well. That date first formula, it is so worth it because it keeps everything in chronological order automatically. The surname in all caps, I like to put it in all caps. It really helps you spot it very quickly within the folder. And the place is important because place and time help us distinguish between people with the same name. See my video on how to maximize those two factors of place and time frame. And by adding place, again, you are building a sort of timeline right there in your file folder, showing you how they moved from location to location over time. And adding the record type can be helpful when you store a lot of different kinds of documents in the same folder. We're going to talk about that in our next 5th strategy. The key to this is consistency. The key is consistency. Use this exact naming convention every time you save a record. Website-generated names that you see when you download the records are fairly meaningless. They're designed for their systems, not yours. So rename files as you save so they don't get lost in the pile. If you rename some files and not others, the system sort of breaks down really fast. So if you do nothing else today, create a naming standard and start using it on every new file. And as for those files that you've already saved on your computer that aren't neat and tidy, I just clean those up as I go. If I'm going into various folders throughout my research, I'm cleaning up file names while I'm there. No reason to stop and redo them all right now. Do them as you work, and eventually you'll be up to snuff very soon. So to rename a file on a PC, you can right-click and then select Rename, or just double-click on the file name and type over it, retaining the file extension. All right, so number 5, implementing a filing organization structure and sticking to it. So once the files are named, they need a home. A folder organizational system is what keeps your hard drive from becoming a digital junk drawer. As you research, you're going to be filing, retrieving, and refiling a lot of material, and it can become unwieldy pretty quick. The best structure is the one that you actually use, but it should be specific enough to be useful and broad enough to scale as your research grows. Slogging through hundreds of files in a folder is really inefficient, and frankly, it's frustrating, even when you use my file naming convention. But a filing folder structure will fix all that. I start with a surname folder. As files start to accumulate, I sort them into head of household folders. And once those kind of start piling up, I don't like to look at more than a dozen or so, unless there happens to be quite a few of the same type of record. But generally speaking, you want a small amount there in the folder to review. So once they start piling up, sort them into record type folders. I find it really convenient to sort by record type because when I'm looking for a record, I don't need to look through all records, just that type of record, like newspapers or census records. If you choose not to do that, you may want to add a what to your file name convention to include what type of record it is. So it could be 1900, 0417, Burkett, Conover, Union City, Indiana, census. You can adopt my full organizational strategy with my Organize Your Hard Drive videos and the handouts that are available on my website, genealogygems.com. Put this structure into place today. Don't wait. You're going to need this. The 6th thing you can do to avoid regrets is to set up cloud backup. Now. Do it now. You're making a big investment in your family tree, and computer backup is really your insurance policy in case something happens to your computer. Well, what could happen, right? Computers fail, or they get taken out in a lightning strike and a power surge like mine were. They can be destroyed by water or fire damage in your house. External hard drives can break or get lost. Your laptop could be stolen. I had somebody email me and tell me about theirs getting stolen and how cloud backup saved the day. And human beings just make mistakes sometimes. Losing all your data is not a regret that you're going to want. So to avoid it, you need a strong backup plan, which includes offsite storage and redundancy. And cloud backup offers both of those things. There are many different cloud backup services out there, and each year you can find PC Magazine's online review of the top providers. The good news is you only need one, but it does require a yearly subscription. I know, another yearly subscription, but this is one you really can't afford not to have. Cloud backup protects you by storing your data offsite. So in other words, there's a redundant copy in another location other than your house. If you just back up your computer to an external hard drive that you actually store in your house, that doesn't do you any good in the case of a disaster in your home. And here's a tip. Test your backup occasionally. Don't just assume it's working. Open a backed up file and confirm that it's there and it's readable. When I give genealogy webinars, I will pause my cloud backup just to give me a little more bandwidth to make sure I've got a good, strong connection. And that's why occasionally I test my backup. I go and I check and make sure it's not still in pause mode. It's a really good habit to get into. Many people only discover their backup problem after they need a backup, and by then it's too late. So make this a priority today. Backups are not optional. They are part of doing really good research responsibly. If you're enjoying this video, will you take a moment right now and click that like button? Let YouTube know that you're enjoying this video. It helps tremendously. It helps us get our videos out to other genealogists, so thank you. Okay, number 7 is never trust anyone else's family tree, even when it seems to solve your brick wall. This is where so many researchers get excited. You find a tree that appears to hold the answer to your challenging ancestor, and suddenly it looks like the mystery is solved. But a family tree is not proof. It is only a clue, a starting point for more investigation. And sometimes trees are wildly wrong. I hate to call out other researchers, but people copy information from other trees all the time without verifying it. And sometimes the errors are innocent. Sometimes it came from a misunderstanding, and sometimes someone just guessed, and the guess just got repeated and repeated until it sounded true. When you get information from somebody else's tree, ask yourself, what is the actual source that they're using for this? Whatever it is, scrutinize it to see if you draw the same conclusion. If there are no sources, go find them. If you can't find them, don't add the information to your tree. This habit will save you from building your own tree on top of somebody else's mistake. And be wary, genealogy websites make it so easy to find information in other people's trees. You think, this looks really good, and one click grafts it onto your tree. So never trust someone else's family tree, period. The 8th thing that you can do to save yourself from regret is to save the family photos that you're digitizing in the correct format and size. Finding old family photos is one of the biggest thrills for a family historian. And if you've been lucky enough to have inherited your family's photos, you've probably discovered that it can be a really big job getting everything digitized and archived. Well, digitized family photos deserve the same care as all your records. In fact, sometimes they deserve even more because once the original is gone or damaged, the scan might be the only version you have left. And that makes file format and storage decisions really important. So avoid regrets and digitize them wisely. Start by saving the highest quality master copy that you can. If you're working with a scanned image, keep the original scan untouched. Make copies for sharing, for posting, for editing. A JPEG format is fine for a lot of uses, but it is compressed, which means when you repeatedly save it, it can actually degrade the quality. If the photo is an important archive copy, preserve it in a lossless or a high quality format like TIFF whenever possible. And think about practical size. A giant file might be wonderful for preservation, but it might be kind of clumsy for everyday use. That's why it helps to keep both an archived version and a working version. And label them clearly so that you know which one is safe to preserve and which one is meant for editing. Again, my computer file organization system includes a structure for photographs as well, and you can use the naming conventions that we talked about. And don't even start your photo digitization until you get that cloud backup set up and running. Number 9, creating a research plan for tough brick walls. That's going to help you save a lot of regrets. In genealogy, a brick wall is when you feel like you've looked everywhere and you've tried everything and you can't find what you're looking for. Maybe it's that next generation of great-grandparents. It's so frustrating. It can be tempting just to give up. I really understand that. But the answer is not to shelve your research and just regret that you couldn't find the answer. Over my 50 plus years of genealogy experience, I've learned that the problem isn't finding the answer. It's focusing on the right questions, and it's researching smarter and more strategically. And that's where a research plan comes in. A research plan helps you step back. It clearly defines the problem, and it lays out a game plan that can move the case forward. I've spoken to thousands of genealogists at conferences, and over the years, I have polled those audiences. Typically, a very small percentage has ever attempted to create and implement a genealogy research plan. And it's not surprising, really, because most folks don't really know how to do it. And it sounds like a lot of extra work. But what's really a lot of extra work is researching in circles and getting nowhere. So to create a research plan, start by writing down the exact question that you're trying to answer. Really examine that question. Is it the right question? You don't just want find out more about John Smith, but something much more specific, like who were the parents of John R. Smith, born about 1848 in Union City, Indiana? Then list what you already know, what you think you know, and what is still unproven. Get it all down in the plan. And then identify what record sets might answer the question. If one source failed, think about land, probate, tax, church, military, newspaper, guardianship, migration pattern records, or DNA evidence. And sometimes a brick wall gets busted because you stop asking only about the person and you start researching the family, the neighbors, the place, or the time period. That broader approach often reveals the missing link. Keep a research log so you don't repeat the same dead ends, and write down where you searched, what you found, and what you still need to test. That way, your brick wall doesn't turn into a loop. If you need help nailing down a research plan, maybe you've never done one before, and if you're a genealogygems.com premium member, you've got access to my online course, Create a Genealogy Research Plan in 10 minutes a day. The link is in the description below, and it comes with a really handy template that will help set you up for success. And our 10th thing that you should be doing to avoid genealogical regret is to cite your sources. If there is one habit that protects your future self from regret, it's really source citation. It tells you where facts came from, what kind of record it is, and how to find it again later. Without citations, your tree may look complete, but it becomes really difficult to trust it or to defend it. The practical payoff of citing your sources is huge. If you come back years later and you realize that you might have the wrong William Moore, a good citation helps you retrace the exact path that got you there. If a cousin asks you where you got a birth date, you can answer immediately. If you need to prove a relationship for a line of descent, your citations make that work a lot easier. Just capture the essentials while the record is fresh in your mind. Where you found it, what database or website you used, the original source, and the details needed to relocate it. A few extra seconds now, citing your sources, can save hours of confusion and regret later. Friends, genealogy is really a long game, and the best researchers are not just good at finding records. They're really good at protecting their work, organizing it, and making it easy to use again. The habits that you build early, they're going to shape every future discovery, free from regrets. I hope you've picked up some tips that you feel like you can really put into practice today. If you want to stay in touch, I'd love that. Go over to genealogygems.com and sign up for our free email newsletter. That's really the best way to stay in touch, and you get a free ebook with some of my best tips in it with your very first email. So thank you. Until next time, thank you so much for listening, my friends. I'll talk to you soon.